Good evening and welcome to Tinkering with Edkelar. Going through my backlog catalog of videos, I realized that I almost forgot about this one here. A Commodore color monitor, model number 1084S. It is basically a combined PAL video and TTL monitor suitable for almost any of the earlier 8-bit computers, the C64, the C128, as well as CGA-based PCs. It also contains a set of stereo speakers, indicated by the S in the model number. Now, let's have a look into it. The shipping went about as good as one could hope for. No visible damage during transit. But everybody who knows about this series of monitors is aware that the cover on the front controls is usually broken. And so, of course, it is missing here too. As usual with monitors, the screws are well hidden within the case. The longest screwdriver I have just barely fits. But somehow, even after removing all the screws, the case won't slide off. Don't panic, I know where my towel is, and it will help protect the CRT. Gotcha! Other than the ones on the bottom, there was a screw semi-hiding between the RCA connectors. Ta-da! Like usual, with anything involving glass, I'm striving to get that out as quickly as possible. The anode cap is first. Then the neck board. And after removing the 4 screws that hold it to the front, the CRT comes right out. And right then the battery of the camera decided to die. Nice timing. But the only missed part is the unplugging of the degaussing coil. The PCB should slide out, but something is catching. Well, then I shall remove the bracket. I think the screw was slightly too long and caught on some solder joints. The latch for the cover flap is still working just fine. The speakers are held in place with a spring clip. Unhook and slide out. Oh, the monitor has a tilt stand. But other than what I usually see, this one is in the rear. So you can tilt the screen forward. Strange design. Now to do some patching. The case is missing a bit of plastic in the rear. It must have bumped against something. I'm using some leftover 3D printed parts to cut and melt pieces into place. The key part is to get close to the final shape without going over. I think it's much easier to add a bit of filler and then sand back than it is to sand off the plastic. But you need to melt the pieces together for good adhesion. Pretty much like welding with plastic. And sanding off the excess. I did go over a bit in this case. And a dab of model kit filler for the finer bumps. Complete with some finer sanding after it dried, to the good enough for the lower rear end that nobody will ever see again point. The case has some minor discoloration. I could leave it at that, but since the front cover needs remaking, as well as that patched up spot in the rear, I decided to go for a paint job from the get-go, masking off the labels. And before people scold me for painting plastics, that darker grey part on the screen, yes, painted from the factory. There. I'm trying a new plastic primer this time. According to the experts in the paint store, it doesn't need full coverage, just lightly dusting should do the job. But still, it's kinda dark. Let's hope the actual paint covers it up. Oof, that is going to need several coats. And the grey frame. Moment of truth. Does the paint survive the masking tape? Yes, almost. Oh well, that one bit on the side may need a bit of touch-up, but the front is nice and crisp. Sadly, as always, the color is not a 100% perfect match, but the slightly darker original is going to be hidden inside the cover anyhow. I am pleased. Cleaning the CRT next. The yoke is glued in place, so unless I absolutely have to, I'm leaving it there. Should also save me some adjustments. And to avoid accidents with the naked CRT, I'm mounting it back to the front cover piece. Now to the electronics side of things. Recapping, of course. And the main power switch is the first component on the list. Not just for cleanup, mind you. I would leave it since it is heat staked, but it does not click properly. Something is off on the inside. The main switch was not easy to open though, and falling apart before I could see how it worked presented me with a nice little extra puzzle. That mechanism was designed by a madman. To get the contacts in, you have to put them in while the actuator spring is held in tension. Only when both are in place and provide symmetric pivot points, the spring can be released. If they are not exactly symmetrical, they will ping off into space. Many choice words were uttered. That took way longer than I hoped, but after cleaning and lubrication, it works like a charm again. Removing the flyback transformer makes it easier to handle the PCB, and since it is shrouded, it also aids in cleanup. The selection switches for the input signals also get a good clean and a bit of grease. removing the potentiometers one by one and getting some new grease in. Recapping. And fresh thermal paste for that controller IC. As well as for the other transistors that are in need. Assembling the PCB again. And after also adding the button for the main switch, once more. These soldered wires are annoying. They came out easy enough, but required some serious force to snap back into place. And now, adding the case parts again. The case is a bit wobbly, but it is supposed to hold the CRT like that for servicing. Claws crossed. And after plugging things in again, power on. No smoke, and nothing went bang either. Good start. And testing. Sorry for the focus issues, I did not see that during filming. But it does seem to work just fine. Sharp picture, plenty brightness, no burn-in. I think that monitor was a good score. And after a bit of geometry adjustment, I am quite happy. Speakers. And the speaker wires. These are ever so slightly too short. The back cover does fit, but it needs a bit of tweaking to snap into place. Finally, the last screws. Now to the missing flap. That shape took quite some time to get around in OpenSCAD. The flap is hinged on two pegs in the case, one of which is broken off. A small screw provides a decent replacement though. As you can see, this cover fits nicely. The only issue was, the latch part was slightly misaligned. I had to snip it off and glue it back on. Again, heat shaping for stability. And after a paint job to match with the rest, it is done. Special thanks to Mr. Who for printing that flap. My 3D printer isn't large enough to have that in one go, and while stitching together segments might have worked, it is much nicer to have one single piece. So this is it, a nice TTL monitor for CGA color output. I hope you enjoyed this project. See you next time! Moment of truth. Does the paint surprise the masking tape? Hey! Boo! Yes, I'm surprised.